It was September 22, 2007, and Tom Garrison was alone on his small lobster boat just off the coast of Maine. The morning had been routine so far, like many before. Tom had been a lobsterman for over 20 years, making a living pulling in traps from the cold waters of the North Atlantic. He knew the waters well, every hidden rock and stretch of coastline familiar to him. The traps were full today, and the catch was promising. So Tom worked efficiently, hoisting the cages from the depths, checking for lobsters, and resetting the traps. The sky was overcast, a typical day for Maine, but the waters were calm enough for a smooth haul. Tom felt comfortable and secure in his routine, paying little attention to the surroundings as he focused on his work. He hummed as he pulled up another cage, heavy with struggling lobsters. He leaned over the edge of his boat to untangle the trap when the ship rocked unexpectedly. At first, Tom thought it was just a strong wave, but then the ship jolted harder this time, nearly knocking him off balance. Puzzled, Tom looked out over the side, and that's when he saw the dark shape circling the boat. It was a bull shark, much larger than any fish he had encountered in these waters. Bull sharks weren't common here, but with warming waters and shifting marine life patterns, they had started showing up more often in New England waters. Bull sharks were aggressive and known for their unpredictable behavior, and this one seemed drawn to the struggling lobsters. Before Tom could react, the shark rammed the side of the boat with alarming force. The ship lurched violently, and Tom scrambled to keep his footing. His heart began to race as the reality of the situation hit him. The shark wasn't just investigating the boat, it was attacking it. Tom had heard stories of sharks becoming aggressive around fishing boats, but he never imagined it would happen to him. Another hit from the shark sent Tom sprawling onto the deck, and before he could get back on his feet, the boat tipped sharply to one side. Suddenly, Tom lost his grip and was thrown overboard, crashing into the icy water below. He surfaced quickly, gasping for air, the cold taking his breath away as the realization of his situation sank in. The bull shark was still circling, drawn by the commotion and the scent of the lobsters in the water. Tom knew he was in immediate danger. Now, rocking without control, the boat drifted away from him, and the shark was closing in. Tom's survival instincts kicked in, and he tried to stay calm, but he could feel the raw fear rising inside him as the predator moved closer. He glanced around, looking for anything that could help. His boat was too far to reach quickly, and the shore was distant, a faint outline through the misty air. The bull shark passed underneath him, its massive shadow sending a jolt of panic through his body. Tom knew that bull sharks were not only fast but also extremely territorial. He had to act fast. Tom kicked his legs, trying to stay afloat, but every movement drew the shark's attention. The water churned as the shark turned sharply, its dorsal fin cutting through the surface as it returned toward him. Tom knew he couldn't outswim it. His only chance was to outmaneuver it. He had spent his life on these waters, and knew erratic movements could distract sharks. He thrashed his arms in the water, creating as much turbulence as possible, hoping to confuse the predator long enough to buy himself some time. The shark circled him closer this time. Tom felt the displacement of water as it swam just beneath him, its powerful body sending waves that rocked him. Then, without warning, the shark lunged. Tom twisted his body, narrowly avoiding the open jaws, but the shark grazed his side, leaving a deep scratch on his leg. The pain shot through him, but there was no time to think about it. He kicked hard, swimming for the boat. The shark wasn't done. It came at him again, this time from below, and Tom felt the force of its body as it rammed into him, pushing him back under the water. He struggled to resurface, his lungs burning as he fought to stay above the surface. The boat drifted farther away, but Tom couldn't focus on that. He had to keep the shark at bay. In desperation, Tom reached out for anything to defend himself. His hands found a piece of debris floating nearby, a wooden plank from his boat. As the shark made another pass, he swung the plank with all his strength, striking the shark on the nose. The shark recoiled, momentarily stunned, but it was far from retreating. Tom knew he had only seconds before it attacked again. Summoning the last of his strength, Tom began swimming toward the boat, the plank still clutched in his hand. The cold water sapped his energy, but he pushed on, knowing it was his only chance. Behind him, the shark circled again, but its movements had slowed, the blow to its nose having thrown it off for the moment. Tom finally reached the side of his boat and hauled himself aboard with every ounce of strength he had left. He collapsed onto the deck, gasping for air, his body shaking from the cold and the adrenaline. The shark passed by the boat, its dark shape visible beneath the surface, before slowly disappearing into the depths. Tom lay on the deck, his leg bleeding and his body exhausted, but he was alive. The bull shark had come terrifyingly close, but he had outlasted it. As he lay there, catching his breath, he realized how close he had come to becoming another story in the news. A reminder that danger could appear without warning, even in the waters he had known his whole life. On April 10, 2024, a team of marine biologists aboard the SeaQuest submarine set out on an exciting mission to explore the deep waters off the coast of California. They aimed to study a newly discovered shark species rumored to possess unique intelligence. The team comprised 4 professionals, each passionate about marine life and exploration. Dr. Rachel Hayes, the lead marine biologist, had over a decade of experience studying shark behavior. Known for her innovative methods, she sought to protect marine habitats by understanding these creatures. Dr. James Lee, a marine ecologist, focused on sharks' roles in aquatic ecosystems, while Mia Patel, an oceanographer, specialized in using technology to analyze ocean habitats. Lastly, Tom, an experienced submarine pilot, ensured the crew's safety and navigation of the submarine. The team marveled at the underwater beauty as the submarine descended into the ocean's depths. Brightly colored fish darted past, and corals swayed with the currents. After a few hours, they arrived at the designated research site, where signs of the new shark species had been detected. Excitement filled the team as they prepared to gather samples and collect data. Suddenly, an unexpected mechanical failure struck SeaQuest. Alarms blared and lights flickered. Tom quickly checked the systems, but it became clear they were stranded deep in the ocean. Panic began to spread as the team realized the gravity of the situation. They were surrounded by unknown and potentially dangerous marine creatures in the depths. The tension increased when they spotted a school of large sharks circling the submarine. These sharks were unlike any they had encountered before. Their movements were coordinated, and they appeared aggressively guarding their territory. Fear gripped the team as they realized they were dealing with a mechanical crisis and facing intelligent, dangerous predators. With limited oxygen and failing technology, the team knew they had to act quickly. Gathering around the control panel, they worked on a plan to escape. While James analyzed the data they had collected, Mia checked the emergency systems, hoping to send a distress signal. Rachel reminded the team to remain calm and work together. Their survival depended on combining their expertise and staying focused. As the crew worked to find solutions, the sharks outside continued to circle, their presence a constant reminder of the dangers lurking in the deep. What began as a mission to study a new species quickly turned into a fight for survival against the harsh realities of the ocean. Once filled with wonder, the underwater world had become a place of fear and urgency. With the sharks growing more aggressive and time running out, the crew had to find a way to escape before their situation worsened. They knew that every second counted as they raced against time. As the team aboard the SeaQuest submarine gathered their thoughts, they knew they had to act quickly. The sharks outside continued circling, and the constant sound of water against the hull only heightened their anxiety. Tom quickly assessed their remaining options, reminding the crew they still had some emergency tools and equipment. Mia examined the sonar and communication systems, hoping they could send a distress signal. While the main systems were down, she searched for any way to reach the surface for help. Meanwhile, Dr. Rachel Hayes closely observed the sharks through the small viewports. She noticed their aggressive and intelligent behavior, and realized the sharks were not acting randomly. They used the ocean's darkness to their advantage, working together, which both fascinated and terrified her. Mia suggested creating noise and vibrations to distract the sharks, theorizing it could give them a chance to escape. The crew agreed it was worth a try. They gathered materials and prepared a device typically used for research to emit sound waves in the water. As they activated the device, the sound echoed through the depths. The sharks paused, reacting to the noise. For a brief moment, the tension lifted as the sharks swam away from the submarine, drawn to the distraction. The team felt a surge of hope as they realized their plan might work, but they knew the diversion wouldn't last long. Rachel and James quickly took charge, preparing to navigate the submarine back toward the surface while the sharks were distracted. Tom carefully monitored the controls, guiding the vessel upward with precision. The team communicated constantly, staying focused as they ascended through the dark water. The sounds of the ocean surrounded them, and their survival weighed heavily on each of them. However, just as they started to gain momentum, the distraction device began to fail. Mia noticed the sound waves diminishing, and panic surged through the crew as the sharks sensed the change. They began to return, moving more aggressively toward the submarine. Time was running out, and the team realized their window of opportunity was closing fast. Rachel quickly adapted their plan. She suggested using the remaining emergency oxygen to create bubbles, hoping it would obscure the sharks' vision long enough for them to escape. It was a risky maneuver, but the crew had no other choice. Working together, they released bubbles into the water as they continued their ascent. As they neared the surface, the team felt renewed hope. The bubbles created a temporary barrier, confusing the sharks. The ocean surface came closer with every passing moment, and the light of day began to break through the darkness. Finally, they breached the surface, and sunlight flooded the submarine. The crew erupted in relief, knowing they had escaped. Though their ordeal was over, they realized how fragile the balance between humanity and nature could be. Their experience had changed them, giving them a deeper respect for the creatures of the ocean. Rachel, determined to share their findings, knew this mission had uncovered valuable insights into marine life and sharks' intelligence. Their journey had just begun. On July 19, 2009, 4 friends, Maria Teixeira, Pedro Santos, Inés Carvalho, and João Almeida, arrived in the Azores for what was supposed to be the vacation of a lifetime. The archipelago, located off the coast of Portugal, is famous for its beautiful landscapes and pristine waters filled with marine life. After a few days of sightseeing, they decided to book a snorkeling tour to explore the ocean up close. They were excited, expecting to swim with fish and maybe catch a glimpse of dolphins. That morning, the group boarded a small boat with a local guide who assured them the waters were safe and calm. The ocean was inviting, the sky clear, and the friends could hardly wait to dive in. Their guide led them to a spot just off the coast of Fayal Island, a well-known location for snorkeling due to its crystal-clear water and vibrant coral. The guide briefly mentioned that sharks were sometimes seen in the area, but were usually harmless blue sharks, more curious than dangerous. Blue sharks are common in the waters surrounding the Azores. They are sleek, fast swimmers and generally considered non-aggressive towards humans. They feed mostly on squid and small fish. However, their curiosity can sometimes lead to closer encounters with snorkelers and divers, particularly when attracted by the movements and sounds of boats. This particular day, a blue shark had been circling near the area, drawn in by the disturbance of the boat's engine and the splashes from the group as they entered the water. The group donned their snorkeling gear and dove in, laughing and marveling at the colorful fish darting around them. Maria swam ahead, pointing out a school of fish to the others, while João floated nearby, taking in the beauty of the underwater world. Everything seemed perfect, and the experience was exactly what they had hoped for. But not far beneath them, the blue shark was watching. It approached slowly, curious about the sudden activity. At first, the shark maintained its distance, but as the group continued to swim and splash, it became bolder, moving closer with each pass. João was the first to notice the shadow below and gestured to the others, but they brushed it off, assuming it was just another fish. As they swam farther from the boat, the shark's behavior changed. It began to circle tighter, its sleek body moving more aggressively. Pedro, who had been enjoying the swim, felt anxious as he noticed the shark approaching. It wasn't just passing by, it was coming toward them. Panic set in when the blue shark made its first rapid approach. It darted straight toward Pedro, veering away at the last second, its tail brushing against his leg. The close encounter sent a wave of fear through the group as they realized they were no longer alone. Inés screamed into her snorkel, frantically trying to swim back toward the boat. João, now seeing the shark's size and speed, grabbed Maria's arm, urging her to follow. The shark was circling faster now, its curiosity replaced by predatory instinct. It swam directly beneath the group, its dark shape clear in the water, and then shot upward toward Maria. She saw it too late. The shark's sharp snout struck her side, knocking her off balance as she struggled to regain control of the water. Pedro shouted for everyone to stay together, but the group was already scattered in the chaos, trying to swim for safety. The shark made another pass, this time targeting Joao. It swam close enough for him to feel the rush of water as it brushed past. His heart pounded as he kicked furiously, trying to reach the boat. But the ship, which had seemed so close just moments before, now felt impossibly far. The shark wasn't backing off, it was hunting, and the danger increased every second they stayed in the water. Inez, struggling to keep up with the others, saw the shark's dorsal fin cut through the surface. Her breaths came in short, panicked bursts as she tried to swim faster. But the shark was faster still. It circled back, coming up from below and ramming into Pedro, its teeth grazing his leg. Blood clouded the water around them as Pedro cried out in pain, his leg throbbing from the shark's bite. With Pedro injured and the shark growing more aggressive, the group had no choice but to fight back to the boat. Joao grabbed Maria and pulled her toward the ship, shouting for Pedro and Inez to follow as fast as possible. The shark was relentless, its sleek body cutting through the water as it made another pass, this time closer to Inez. She kicked hard, desperate to escape its reach. Pedro, bleeding and exhausted, struggled to keep swimming. His leg was slowing him down and he could feel the shark getting closer again. The pain from the bite was overwhelming, but he couldn't stop. In a desperate effort, Joao grabbed Pedro's arm and dragged him toward the boat. Sensing its prey slipping away, the shark lunged, its jaws snapping shut inches from Pedro's foot. With one last burst of energy, the group reached the boat. Finally realizing the danger, the guide pulled them aboard, their bodies trembling from the adrenaline and fear. As they collapsed onto the deck, gasping for breath, the blue shark circled the boat once more before disappearing into the deep, leaving only the memory of its attack behind. The dream vacation had turned into a nightmare, but they had survived. The shark's cold eyes and relentless pursuit would haunt them, but they knew they were lucky to have escaped. On March 25, 2024, the seasoned crew aboard the fishing vessel Horizon's Edge embarked on another night patrol in the deep waters off the coast of Florida. The crew comprised experienced fishermen who had spent years working together. Captain Mike Dawson, a man in his 50s known for his deep knowledge of the sea and its mysteries, was at the helm. Mike's calm demeanor put his crew at ease, even during the toughest conditions. He had seen many things in his career, but always looked for the unexpected. The crew comprised Jake, the first mate in his 30s. He had a natural fishing talent, having worked on boats since his teens. Enthusiastic and sharp-eyed, he often spotted unusual things before others. Emily, the ship's biologist in her late 20s, was passionate about marine life and provided valuable insights into sea creatures. Tom, a reliable deckhand in his 40s, was known for his strength and always ensured the crew's safety during their shifts. On this particular night, the atmosphere was calm, with the moon shining brightly over the water. The crew was focused on their duties, preparing their gear for a routine catch. However, something unusual caught their attention as they moved further from shore. Using their night vision equipment, they noticed a large mass moving beneath the surface. Piqued by curiosity, they decided to approach cautiously. The crew was shocked to see a school of unnaturally large sharks swimming together as they got closer. Their size and how they moved in unison were unlike anything the crew had ever witnessed. It was as if the sharks were exhibiting coordinated behavior, which raised alarms in Emily's mind. She began to speculate about what could be causing this strange phenomenon. Tension hung in the air as the crew watched the sharks, their instincts warning them of potential danger. Suddenly, without warning, one of the sharks lunged out of the water and attacked one of the sailors leaning over the side of the boat. The crew erupted into chaos, shouting in horror as they rushed to help their colleague. The attack was swift and brutal, sending shockwaves of fear through everyone aboard the Horizon's Edge. Captain Mike barked orders for the crew to retreat to safety in the frenzy, but the panic was palpable. They quickly grabbed emergency equipment and desperately called for backup. The situation was unprecedented, and the crew realized they were facing something never documented in marine biology. The sheer size and aggression of the sharks indicated that they were not acting normally. With the vessel now in a state of emergency, the crew had to come together and devise a plan to protect themselves. Mike and Jake took charge, assessing the injuries and ensuring everyone was accounted for. Emily's scientific knowledge began to kick in as she tried to figure out why the sharks behaved this way. She wondered if something in the environment had triggered this unusual behavior. As the crew worked to stabilize the situation, they couldn't shake the fear of what they were dealing with. They were not just fishermen anymore. They were caught fighting for survival against an aggressive force of nature. The night that had started so calmly had turned into a nightmare, and the mystery of the sharks loomed large in their minds. The horizon's edge was now in uncharted waters, literally and metaphorically, and the crew knew they had to find a way to survive the night. The crew quickly gathered their wits to formulate a plan as the chaos continued on the horizon's edge. Captain Mike assessed the situation, realizing that they needed to move fast. The injured sailor was in shock, and they had to get him to safety. Jake and Tom worked together to pull the sailor away from the boat's edge, keeping him calm despite the chaos surrounding them. Emily used her training to check the sailor's injuries, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. She knew they had to act quickly to prevent further harm. The sight of the large, aggressive shark swimming close to the boat made her heart race, but she forced herself to stay focused. She recalled her studies about shark behavior and understood that something was wrong in the ocean. These sharks were not acting like normal predators. They were coordinated and appeared to be hunting as a group. With the injured sailor stabilized, Mike ordered the crew to raise the anchor and prepare to leave the area. They needed to get away from the sharks and find a safer spot. As the crew worked to maneuver the boat, the tension in the air was thick with fear. Every splash of water or sudden movement sent a jolt of anxiety through them. Just as they thought they might be able to escape, the sharks circled the boat again, showing no signs of retreat. Their large bodies moved in sync beneath the water, creating a sense of unease among the crew. It was as if the sharks knew of their presence and would not let them leave easily. The crew quickly realized they were facing an attack and a mysterious behavior that could threaten their survival. Mike steered the boat away from the area with the engine roaring to life, hoping to distance themselves from the aggressive school of sharks. However, the sharks followed closely, indicating they needed to be finished. Emily's mind raced as she wondered why these sharks acted this way. She knew that environmental changes could affect marine life, but what could have caused such a dramatic shift in behavior? Emily quickly jotted down her observations as they sped away, documenting everything she could about the sharks' actions. She understood that this incident could lead to significant discoveries about marine biology, but right now her main concern was the safety of her crew. After an eternity, the crew finally reached a quieter part of the water. The sharks seemed to lose interest, allowing the crew to sigh in relief. They quickly anchored the boat and assessed the damage. The injured sailors needed immediate medical attention, but they had managed to escape the jaws of danger. Once they were safe, the crew gathered to discuss what had just happened. They shared their thoughts on the sharks' unusual behavior and speculated about the reasons behind it. Emily suggested that water temperature or pollution changes might drive the sharks to act aggressively. The crew agreed they must report their findings to the local marine authorities. The aftermath of the encounter was not just about surviving the night. It was about understanding the implications of their experience. The crew had faced a terrifying ordeal that could have ended in tragedy, but they emerged with a newfound respect for the power of nature. They realized they needed to be more cautious and aware of their environmental impact. The crew members were determined to share their story as they returned to shore. They hoped that by raising awareness about the behavior of these sharks, they could contribute to protecting marine life and the safety of those who ventured out to sea. The vast expanse of the Arctic spread out in a white wilderness, a landscape so untouched and pristine that it seemed otherworldly. Here, on a remote island encased in ice and snow, Alex, a dedicated documentary filmmaker, had set up his base camp. His mission was to capture the elusive and intimate moments of a colony of seals during mating season. This endeavor promised rare and breathtaking footage. With his camera gear meticulously checked and survival equipment stowed away, Alex embarked on what he hoped would be a career-defining project. The seals were gathered on a vast stretch of frozen shoreline, their slick bodies contrasting sharply against the snow-covered ground. Few humans had ever witnessed this sight firsthand. The seals were busy with ritualistic displays and vocalizations, oblivious to the biting cold and howling winds that swept across the ice. Alex, bundled in layers of thermal gear, carefully navigated the treacherous terrain, his camera capturing the intricate dance of nature. Days passed in a blur of icy winds and breathtaking scenes. Alex became a silent observer, blending into the landscape, his presence barely noted by the seals. The camera's lens allowed him to see the world from a perspective few ever experienced, capturing the raw beauty and harsh realities of life in the Arctic. He documented the nurturing bond between mothers and their pups, the playful antics of younger seals, and the majestic yet brutal battles between males vying for dominance. One frigid morning, as the pale sun barely peeked over the horizon, Alex spotted a massive male seal that seemed to command the attention of the entire colony. This alpha male was an awe-inspiring figure with battle scars etched into his thick hide. Alex knew that getting footage of this dominant seal would be a highlight of his documentary. He approached cautiously, mindful of the animal's territorial nature. Sensing an unfamiliar presence, the alpha male lifted its head and locked eyes with Alex. The filmmaker's heart pounded as he continued to film, inching closer for a better shot. He knew the risks, but was driven by the promise of capturing something extraordinary. Suddenly the seal bellowed, a deep resonant sound that echoed across the ice. It was a warning, clear and unmistakable. Before Alex could react, the massive seal charged, its bulk moving slowly across the frozen ground. Alex's instinct for self-preservation kicked in. He swung his camera, hoping to deter the animal. The seal's attack was relentless, and the camera equipment offered little protection. Alex stumbled, falling hard onto the ice. Pain shot through his leg where the seal's powerful jaws had clamped down, tearing through his thick clothing. Desperation surged through him as he used his tripod to fend off the aggressive seal, each movement a struggle against the searing pain and rising panic. He knew he had to get away, to put distance between himself and the enraged animal. With great effort, he scrambled to his feet, using the tripod to keep the seal at bay as he backed away slowly. The alpha male eventually relented, returning to its territory, but the damage was done. Alex's leg throbbed with pain, the cold seeping into his bones through the torn fabric. The journey back to camp was an agonizing test of endurance and willpower. The extreme cold gnawed at him, sapping his strength and clarity. Though designed for the harsh conditions, his survival gear offered little solace against the pain radiating from his leg. Each step was a battle, his breath forming vapor clouds in the frigid air. Navigating the icy landscape was treacherous. The once familiar terrain seemed like a labyrinth, and each snowdrift and ice formation was a potential hazard. Alex relied on his survival skills, honed over years of filming in extreme environments. The sky darkened, the brief Arctic day giving way to a long, frigid night. Alex knew that stopping was not an option. If he paused, the cold would claim him. He pressed on, his mind focused on reaching his camp. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Alex spotted the outline of his base camp. Relief flooded through him, giving him a final burst of energy. He staggered into the camp, collapsing near his tent. With trembling hands, he unpacked his first aid kit and began treating his wounds. The bite marks were deep, and infection was a real risk in the harsh conditions. He cleaned the wounds as best he could, applying antiseptic and bandages. The pain was relentless, but Alex knew he couldn't afford to rest. He needed to secure the camp against the cold and ensure he had enough supplies to last until help could arrive. He activated his emergency beacon, a signal that would alert the nearest rescue station to his predicament. The next few days were a blur of pain and cold. Alex rationed his food and water, careful not to overexert himself. As he waited, Alex reflected on the events that had brought him to this point. The attack had been a harsh reminder of the raw power of nature, of the thin line between observer and participant in the wild. He had always known the risks, but experiencing them firsthand was a sobering lesson. Yet despite the pain and fear, he deeply respected the alpha male seal. It had been defending its territory, following instincts honed over millennia of survival in one of the harshest environments on Earth. As Alex's strength waned and hope began to dim on the fifth day, he heard the distant hum of an approaching aircraft. The sound grew louder, cutting through the wind. He staggered out of his tent, waving a brightly colored fabric to signal his location. The rescue team descended their presence, a beacon of hope in the frozen wasteland. They quickly assessed his condition, their faces a mix of concern and determination. Alex was lifted into the helicopter. The cabin's warmth starkly contrasted with the biting cold outside. He looked over the vast Arctic landscape as they flew towards the nearest medical facility. The experience had been harrowing, but he had survived. His footage would tell the story of the seals, their fierce beauty, and the challenges they faced in a changing world. In the contemporary fishing community of Kashiga, Alaska, the sea remained a source of livelihood and a constant threat. The men and women who worked these waters respected the ocean's power. Still, they relied on its bounty to sustain their families. It was a life of hard work and uncertainty, where each trip could bring either fortune or disaster. The first sign of trouble came quietly, almost unnoticed. A fishing boat failed to return one evening. The Coast Guard was alerted and a search was initiated. They found the boat adrift, its crew of 4 missing. The vessel showed signs of damage, as if it had been struck by something large and powerful. The community mourned the loss, but accidents were not uncommon in these dangerous waters, so they forgot about them quickly. However, it happened again. Another boat was found wrecked, its crew of 3 missing and later found dead. The pattern became impossible to ignore as more boats were discovered and destroyed, and their crews were gone. When the number of fishermen killed was counted, it was up to 17 in just 3 months. This sent waves of fear and grief through Kashiga. Theories and rumors spread like wildfire. Some blamed rogue waves, others spoke of a curse, while a few whispered about a monstrous sea creature. Desperation grew, and the local authorities and Coast Guard could not provide answers. The town needed help, someone who could decipher the mystery behind the tragedies. Enter Dr. Claire Roberts, a renowned marine biologist specializing in oceanography and sea creatures' behavior. Her arrival in Kashiga was met with both hope and skepticism. Claire's reputation preceded her. She was known for her deep understanding of marine life and ability to solve complex ecological problems. Claire's first task was to examine the boat's wreckage. The damage was unlike anything she had ever seen. The hulls were torn apart, splintered by immense force. Her initial hypothesis pointed to a rogue wave or an underwater seismic event. Still, the regularity and specificity of the attacks suggested a more deliberate perpetrator. Her suspicions were confirmed when she examined some of the bodies. The injuries were consistent with those inflicted by a large marine predator. Deep gashes and bite marks indicated the presence of a powerful jaw and sharp teeth. The pattern of the wounds and the sheer strength required to inflict such damage narrowed the list of suspects. It pointed unmistakably to an orca. Orcas, known as killer whales, were apex predators and brilliant creatures. They were known to exhibit complex behaviors and could hunt in packs. However, attacks on humans were exceedingly rare. Orcas typically avoided human interaction and had never been known to target fishing boats so systematically. Claire faced a baffling anomaly, an orca driven by an unknown rage singling out fishermen and their vessels. Claire set out to gather more data. She equipped a research vessel with underwater cameras and acoustic equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the rogue orca's behavior. She spent days on the water, scouring the coastline and monitoring the movements of marine life. Her efforts were initially fruitless. The sea seemed to hold its secrets tightly, offering no clues. Then, one foggy morning, Claire's patience was rewarded. The cameras picked up movement beneath the surface, a large shadow gliding silently through the depths. The footage was grainy but unmistakably showed an orca, its black and white markings distinctive even in the murky water. Claire's heart raced as she reviewed the footage. This was no ordinary orca. Its behavior was erratic and aggressive. It circled the research vessel, ramming it with alarming force before disappearing into the gloom. Claire analyzed the acoustic data, searching for anomalies in the orca's vocalizations. She discovered something unexpected. The orca's calls were atypical, filled with distress and agitation. Orcas communicated using a complex language of clicks and whistles, and the vocalizations Claire recorded were unlike anything she had encountered before. They were haunting, a cry of rage and pain that sent chills down her spine. Determined to understand the cause of the orca's behavior, Claire delved into the region's recent history. She discovered that the local fishing industry had significantly changed in the past year. Overfishing had depleted the stocks of salmon and herring, the primary food sources for orcas. In their desperation to maintain their catch, some fishermen resorted to illegal practices, including using explosives to stun the fish, causing immense disruption to the marine ecosystem. Claire hypothesized that the rogue orca's aggression directly responded to these disruptions. The depletion of food sources and the violent methods used by the fishermen had likely traumatized the animals. It was acting out of a primal survival instinct, lashing out at the perceived threat to its existence. With this understanding, Claire knew that stopping the orca would require addressing the root causes of its behavior. She convened a meeting with the fishermen, presenting her findings and urging them to change their practices. The reception was mixed. Some were sympathetic, recognizing their role in the crisis. In contrast, others were skeptical and unwilling to acknowledge the impact of their actions on the marine environment. Claire faced an uphill battle. The fishermen's livelihoods were at stake, and the community was divided. She knew persuading them to adopt sustainable practices would take time and effort. She continued her research, documenting the orca's movements and vocalizations and gathering evidence to support her case. In the meantime, the attacks continued. Another boat was found adrift, and its crew was missing. The fear in the village intensified, and the calls for more drastic measures grew louder. Some demanded that the orca be hunted and killed, viewing it as a monster that needed to be eradicated. Claire was determined to prevent such an outcome. She believed that understanding and addressing the underlying causes of the orca's behavior was the only way to resolve the crisis. So she sought allies among environmental organizations and government agencies. The breakthrough came when a group of fishermen, led by a respected elder, agreed to participate in a pilot project. They adopted sustainable practices, using less invasive methods, and reducing their catch to allow the fish stocks to recover. The rogue orca's behavior began to change. The attacks decreased in frequency, and the animal's vocalizations became less distressed. Claire believed that the orca was responding to the improved conditions, sensing that the threat to its survival was diminishing. Despite these positive developments, tensions remained high. Some factions within the community continued to call for more aggressive action, viewing the orca as an ever-present danger. Claire knew that lasting change would require a fundamental shift in attitudes and practices, which could take years. In time, the fishing community of Kashiga began to heal. The fishermen adapted to the new practices, improving their catches as the marine ecosystem recovered. The orca sightings became less frequent, and the animals seemed to have found peace. The Caribbean sun beat down on the azure waters as boats worldwide gathered for the annual competitive spearfishing tournament. This event was renowned among spearfishing enthusiasts, drawing participants who sought the thrill of the hunt and the prestige of victory. Among the competitors was a team led by Carlos, a seasoned diver known for his skill and calm demeanor under pressure. Carlos and his team had prepared meticulously for this tournament. They had spent months training, honing their skills, and familiarizing themselves with the local marine life. The tournament rules were straightforward. The team that brought back the largest and most impressive catch within the allotted time would be declared the winner. With his vast experience, Carlos knew the waters well and had a strategy in mind. The team suited up and prepared their gear. Each member checked their spear guns, ensuring they were in perfect working order. They reviewed their hand signals and emergency procedures before slipping into the warm, clear water. The ocean enveloped them, its depths teeming with life and possibility. Carlos led the way, descending slowly into the blue abyss. The underwater world was a kaleidoscope of colors and motion, with schools of fish darting in every direction and the coral reef sprawling like an alien landscape. The team spread out, maintaining visual contact while scanning for their quarry. Seconds turned into minutes as they explored the reef, spearing several smaller fish to keep their skills sharp and to build a sense of rhythm. They encountered barracudas, groupers, and even a few sharks. But something else matched the tournament-winning catch criteria. The tension was palpable, but Carlos remained focused, confident their patience would pay off. Carlos saw it during one of these moments of quiet focus. A giant swordfish, more significant than any he had ever encountered, appeared from the depths. Its sleek, powerful body cut through the water with grace and menace. Carlos signaled to his team, pointing out the fish. They regrouped quickly, understanding the gravity of the situation. This was their chance to secure victory, but they needed to approach with caution. The swordfish, however, seemed aware of their presence. Instead of fleeing, it turned and charged toward them with unexpected ferocity. Its long, sharp bill was a formidable weapon, and its aggression caught the team off guard. Carlos barely had time to react as the fish lunged, forcing him to dive to the side to avoid a direct hit. The underwater struggle began in earnest. The swordfish was not just defending itself, it was attacked with uncommon aggression for its species. Carlos and his team had to balance the need to protect themselves to capture the fish. They used their spear guns sparingly, aware that each shot needed to count, and that missing could provoke an even more dangerous response. Carlos closely watched his dive computer, tracking their depth and remaining air. The swordfish made another charge, and one of his teammates barely avoided being struck. Carlos knew they couldn't sustain this cat-and-mouse game much longer. They needed to devise a plan to subdue the fish without putting themselves in further danger. Drawing on his experience, Carlos signaled to his team to try a coordinated approach. They would attempt to tire the swordfish by forcing it to make repeated charges, hoping to exhaust it enough to make a capture feasible. The team positioned themselves strategically, using the reef's terrain to their advantage. They moved in unison, closing the distance to the swordfish. Carlos aimed with his spear gun, targeting a spot just behind the gills where a clean shot would be most effective. He waited for the right moment, his heart pounding in his chest. The swordfish made one last desperate lunge, and Carlos fired. The spear struck true, embedding itself in the fish's side. The swordfish thrashed violently, its powerful body convulsing in an attempt to break free. The team moved quickly to secure the fish and minimize its suffering. They used ropes and additional spears to immobilize it, carefully avoiding its deadly bill. It was a grueling process, but the swordfish's struggles eventually subsided. With the fish subdued, Carlos signaled for the team to begin their ascent. They were mindful of their air supplies, rising slowly to avoid decompression sickness. The ascent felt like an eternity, each meter a reminder of the delicate balance between success and disaster. Breaking the surface, they were greeted by the bright Caribbean sun and the cheers of the tournament officials monitoring their progress. Seeing the giant swordfish hoisted onto their boat was a testament to their skill and determination. It was a catch that would be talked about for years to come. Back on the boat, the reality of their accomplishments began to sink in. The team was exhausted, but the adrenaline still coursed through their veins. They removed their gear and tended to their minor injuries, sharing looks of relief and triumph. Carlos knew this victory was a collective effort, each member playing a crucial role in the success of their mission. The giant swordfish was measured and weighed, and it became clear that Carlos and his team had secured the top spot in the tournament. The announcement was met with applause and admiration from the other competitors. The fish was a true marvel, a once-in-a-lifetime catch that showcased the very essence of the sport. The tournament concluded with a celebratory banquet, where Carlos and his team were honored for their achievement. They received their prizes, but more importantly, they earned the respect of their peers. The story of their encounter with the giant swordfish spread quickly, adding to the legends of the tournament. For Carlos, the experience reminded him why he loved the sea and the sport of spearfishing. It was a world of beauty and danger where skill and courage were constantly tested. The encounter with the swordfish had been a stark reminder of nature's raw power and the respect it demanded. On August 22, 2024, on a remote island off the coast of Maine, lighthouse keeper Sam Thompson proudly performed his nightly duties. In his late 40s, Sam, with his salt and pepper hair and weathered skin, had dedicated his life to ensuring ships safely navigated the rocky waters. Though solitary, he cherished the island's beauty and ocean. Sam's wife, Lily, an artist, drew inspiration from the island's landscapes, while their children, Ben and Mia, enjoyed exploring the tide pools during evening walks with their father. However, Sam grew uneasy during his patrols. He noticed an unusual number of sharks. their erratic movements close to shore hinting at something troubling beneath the waves. While checking the lighthouse one evening, Sam noticed Ben and Mia playing near the water's edge. They splashed and laughed, oblivious to the growing shadows beneath the surface. Sam called out to them, urging them to be careful. He felt a deep dread wash over him as he watched the sharks swim closer. Suddenly, the situation escalated. A loud splash pierced the night as a large shark lunged toward the shore. The children squealed in shock as the water churned violently. Sam's heart pounded as he sprinted to them, adrenaline surging. The shark snapped its jaws as it attacked, but Sam pulled Ben and Mia away just in time. Shaken and trembling, the family hurried back to the safety of the lighthouse, fear etched on their faces. As Sam tried to process what had just happened, the growing aggression of the sharks weighed heavily on his mind. His family was now at risk, and he realized he needed to uncover what was triggering the sharks' behavior. That night, while calming his children, Sam reflected on the island's history and the locals' tales of environmental disturbances, ships dumping waste and overfishing. Could these disruptions be driving the sharks' sudden aggression? Determined to protect his family, Sam decided to investigate further. He would search for answers to the island's dark history. He knew he had to act quickly, not only for the sake of his loved ones, but also to restore balance to the ecosystem. The next day, Sam began his research, speaking with older island residents who had lived there for generations. They shared stories of the changing waters, declining fish populations, and unusual shark behavior. Some believed the disturbances had angered the sea creatures, causing the recent attacks. Sam listened carefully, realizing that restoring harmony to the waters was essential. As he gathered information, Sam prepared for the challenges ahead. The sharks remained a serious threat, but his determination to protect his family and the island's ecosystem strengthened his resolve. He knew that understanding the sharks' behavior was key to a solution. Sam continued his research, talking with fishermen, local historians, and environmentalists familiar with the changes. Each conversation revealed a piece of the puzzle, bringing him closer to uncovering the truth behind the sharks' aggression. Sam learned about the impact of overfishing and pollution on the marine life surrounding the island. Runoff from nearby farms and boat waste had affected the waters. This pollution had diminished fish populations, which in turn may have forced the sharks to hunt closer to the shore searching for food. Sam felt a deep sense of responsibility, realizing that human actions influenced the natural balance. As Sam gathered more information, he knew it was time to take action. He called a meeting with his family, explaining what he had learned and sharing his plan to raise awareness in the community about better environmental practices. He hoped to work with local fishermen and residents to develop a strategy to protect the waters and the wildlife. Meanwhile, shark attacks continued to plague the island, instilling fear in the locals. Tourism sharply declined, and the once lively beaches now stood empty. The fear of shark encounters hung heavily in the air, and Sam realized he had to act quickly, not just for his family, but the entire community. While patrolling the shore one morning, Sam spotted a group of sharks swimming near the beach. They appeared agitated, and leading them was a massive great white, larger than any Sam had seen before. Its commanding presence filled him with awe and fear. Sam watched carefully, trying to analyze its behavior and uncover what was fueling these increasingly dangerous attacks. Determined to gather more data, Sam prepared to dive into the water. Armed with a camera and a safety buoy, he swam cautiously toward the group of sharks, hoping to capture footage that could shed light on their behavior. The water felt colder as he neared them, and the weight of the situation pressed on him. To his surprise, the great white didn't attack. Instead, it circled him, studying him with an almost curious caution. Sam remained calm, filming the shark to document its behavior and collect crucial evidence of the changes affecting the island's marine life. The other sharks began closing in as tension built, their movements growing more aggressive. Sensing the increasing danger, Sam swam back to shore, his heart pounding. While he had captured valuable footage, the risk was too high to stay in the water longer. Back on land, Sam shared the video with his family, who watched in awe as the great white moved with power and grace. They realized how crucial it was to understand this creature and its role in the ecosystem. Sam knew the footage could help raise awareness, and he felt responsible for presenting it to the community. urging them to protect their waters. He organized a town meeting, showing the footage and sharing his findings. Sam passionately explained the importance of respecting the ocean and its creatures, connecting the dots between pollution, overfishing, and shark aggression. The community listened closely, realizing how their actions had affected the marine environment. The meeting sparked discussions about sustainable fishing and the need for cleaner waters. Slowly, the townspeople began to understand the consequences of their behavior, and a sense of collective responsibility emerged. Sam felt hopeful as he watched the community unite, driven by a shared mission to protect the environment and restore balance to their island. In the aftermath of the meeting, residents began to take action. They organized beach cleanups, reduced waste, and started discussing creating a marine-protected area around the island. Sam's efforts had initiated a change in mindset, and the community was beginning to realize the importance of living in harmony with nature. As days turned into weeks, the community's fear of sharks diminished. Working together, they felt empowered to protect their waters and ensure the islands and its wildlife safety. Sam continued to monitor the sharks' behavior, hoping to see signs of a return to normalcy. The icy waters of the Norwegian fjord stretched out in every direction, vast and silent beneath a thin layer of ice. Marine biologist Lars Pedersen had been preparing for this dive for months. He had long been fascinated by the Greenland shark, a deep-sea predator that thrived in these cold, dark waters. The sharks were massive and slow-moving, often living for centuries. Yet little was known about their behavior. Lars had come to study them up close, hoping to capture footage and document one of the ocean's most mysterious creatures. On March 12, 2015, Lars stood at the edge of a hole cut into the ice, preparing to descend into the depths. The day had begun smoothly. Lars had checked his equipment, ensuring his oxygen supply and camera gear were functioning. The temperature was brutally cold, but it was perfect for his research. His goal was to dive deep, observe and record the Greenland shark in its natural environment, far beneath the frozen surface of the Norwegian fjord. The water was freezing as he plunged in, but Lars felt the familiar calm wash over him. The deep blue surrounded him as he descended, his lights cutting through the darkness. He moved slowly, conserving energy and scanning the water for signs of life. After a few minutes, his eyes caught movement below. There it was, a Greenland shark gliding effortlessly in the distance. The shark was massive, its body ancient and covered in scars. Lars hovered silently, watching in awe. Unlike other sharks, Greenland sharks were slow, patient hunters, and Lars had never heard of one attacking a human. He felt safe enough to approach, moving closer with his camera to capture the rare footage. Lars observed the creature for nearly an hour, his body steady as he filmed its slow, deliberate movements. The shark paid him little attention, continuing its quiet patrol of the deep fjord. Lars was thrilled. Everything was going according to plan. Suddenly, his oxygen supply gauge began to flicker. At first, he thought it was a minor glitch, but the readings quickly became erratic. His equipment malfunctioned, and Lars knew he had to ascend quickly before his oxygen ran out. The calm of the dive evaporated, replaced by urgency. He needed to surface, but he had to be careful not to rise too fast or risk decompression sickness. With each kick upward, the water around him churned, creating small disturbances in the previously calm environment. Once indifferent to his presence, the Greenland shark turned its massive head toward Lars. It began to follow, its movements quicker now, responding to the sudden activity. Lars realized with growing fear that the normally slow shark was speeding up, its instincts triggered by his rapid ascent. Lars felt the first wave of panic as he ascended, his heart pounding in his chest. The Greenland shark, once a peaceful shadow in the deep, was now following him, drawn by the disturbance he had created in the water. The shark was moving faster than he had thought possible, closing the distance between them. Lars pushed himself to swim harder, but he could feel the weight of the freezing water and the pressure of the ice above. He had ascended too quickly, and now the shark was locked onto him. Its large, pale eyes focused on his every move. Lars could see the scars along its body, marks of battles fought in the cold depths. The predator's ancient instincts were fully awake now, and Lars realized he was no longer an observer, but a target. As he neared the surface, the reality of his situation hit him harder. The sheet of ice above his head stretched endlessly in all directions, save for the small hole where he had entered. His only escape was that narrow opening, but he had drifted too far from it during his dive. He was trapped beneath the ice with only moments to return to safety. The air in his tank was running low and every second counted. Lars turned sharply, his eyes scanning for the hole in the ice. He kicked as hard as he could, his legs burning from the cold and the effort, but the shark was still there, close behind. It moved with purpose, its massive body cutting through the water effortlessly. Lars's chest tightened as the fear took over. He knew he had to conserve his energy, but the predator's proximity made it impossible to stay calm. The shark surged forward, its head inches from Lars's legs, and he could feel the displacement of water from its movements. He swung his camera equipment desperately, trying to create enough barrier to keep the shark at bay. The shark recoiled slightly, its eyes fixed on the struggling diver. But it wasn't deterred. It was patient, circling Lars in the freezing water, waiting for the right moment. Lars's oxygen was almost gone. His hands trembled as he kicked upward again, his lungs burning from the lack of air. The opening in the ice was still several meters away, but it felt impossibly far. He glanced back to see the shark close in again, its enormous mouth opening slightly as it neared. In a moment of sheer survival instinct, Lars used his camera to shove the shark's snout, startling it just enough to gain a few precious feet of distance. Finally, through the blur of fear and exhaustion, Lars saw the faint light of the hole in the ice. Summoning every ounce of strength left in his body, he propelled himself toward it, his vision dimming as his oxygen supply dwindled. The shark made one last lunge, but Lars reached the surface, bursting through the hole in the ice with a gasp of air. He scrambled onto the frozen surface, shaking uncontrollably from the cold and the terror. Below him, the Greenland shark continued to circle for a moment before slowly drifting back into the depths. Lars lay there, breathing heavily, his mind reeling from the close call. He had faced one of the ocean's oldest predators and survived, but the image of the shark's cold eyes and relentless pursuit would stay with him forever. The crew of the Northern Spirit had been fishing the cold waters off the coast of Alaska for years. Captain Ed Parker and his experienced crew, Mike Sanderson, Dave Collins, and rookie Josh Taylor, knew these waters well. They had been out for a few days, focused on hauling in the rich supply of salmon that thrived in the region. It was June 15, 2011, and everything had gone smoothly until that morning when a thick fog suddenly enveloped their boat. Alaska's fishing grounds were notorious for unpredictable weather, but the fog initially didn't faze the crew. They continued working, hauling in nets filled with salmon and chatting about what they would do with the catch once they returned to shore. The sea was calm. The only sounds were the hum of the boat's engine and the clattering of the heavy nets as they worked. The Pacific sleeper shark was a common but mysterious presence in these waters. Known for being slow and sluggish, these sharks could grow up to 20 feet long. Unlike faster, more aggressive species, sleeper sharks were scavengers, usually feeding on fish or dead marine animals that drifted into their path. They rarely interacted with humans, and the crew of the Northern Spirit had never worried about them. But they didn't know that sleeper sharks could become far more dangerous if provoked. As the fog thickened, visibility dropped to almost nothing. The crew slowed their work, feeling uneasy as they peered into the mist. Ed kept the boat steady, guiding the crew through pulling in the last of the nets. Everything was routine until they noticed something strange. Usually filled with salmon, the nets had become heavier than usual, almost as if something massive had gotten tangled. Mike and Dave struggled to pull the nets up, their muscles straining as they heaved them over the side of the boat. When the nets finally broke the surface, their worst fears were confirmed. A massive Pacific sleeper shark had gotten caught in the lines, its enormous body twisted in the tangled web of ropes, its dark, lifeless eyes staring up at them as it sluggishly tried to free itself. The crew wasn't prepared for this. They had previously dealt with large fish and occasional entanglements, but a shark this size was a different challenge. The shark thrashed weakly in the nets, and the crew knew they needed to act fast before it damaged their equipment beyond repair. Something more disturbing happened as they began working to free the shark. Another shadow appeared beneath the surface, and then another. More sharks were circling the boat, drawn to the commotion and the scent of fish. The fog trapped them in place, and now they were surrounded. The crew's anxiety grew as more sleeper sharks began circling the boat. These sharks were usually docile, but their presence in such numbers was unnerving. Mike, Dave, and Josh worked frantically to untangle the first shark from the nets, but the weight of its massive body was making it difficult. The boat rocked under the strain, and every minute spent wrestling with the nets brought more sharks closer. Captain Ed kept his eyes on the fog-covered horizon, trying to steer them out of the area, but the thick mist made it impossible to navigate properly. They were effectively trapped, and now the sharks were showing signs of aggression. The usually slow-moving predators grew more curious, bumping against the boat's hull and circling tighter. As Mike leaned over the side, trying to free one of the ropes, the shark trapped in the net gave a sudden violent twist. The force nearly pulled Mike into the water, his grip slipping on the wet railing as he struggled to regain his balance. The crew pulled him back just in time, but the danger was becoming more real by the second. The sharks weren't leaving, and the crew's movement agitated them further. One of the larger sharks bumped the boat hard, causing it to rock dangerously. The nets, still tangled with the trapped shark, were in danger of being ripped away completely, which would not only destroy their equipment, but leave them without a catch. Josh, the youngest and most inexperienced crew member, suddenly desperately attempted to free the nets. In his haste, he slipped and lost his footing, tumbling hard against the side of the boat. His legs dangled precariously over the edge, inches from the water. Ed shouted for him to stay still. But before anyone could react, one of the circling sharks surged forward, its massive body brushing against the boat and sending waves splashing over Josh's legs. Panic set in as Mike and Dave grabbed Josh, pulling him back onto the deck. The crew was shaken, knowing how close Josh had come to falling into the water with the sharks. The hammering of their hearts was louder than the eerie silence of the fog. The sleeper sharks continued to circle, and now the trapped shark thrashed harder, making it even more difficult to cut it free without causing more damage. Ed knew they had to get out of the area fast, but the sharks surrounded the boat, and any sudden movement might trigger a full attack. He quickly decided to sacrifice part of the nets. They could lose the catch, but they had to free the shark before it capsized the boat or brought more sharks closer. The crew worked silently, the tension thick in the air as they used a knife to slice through the ropes. The trapped shark broke free with a final cut, disappearing into the depths. Sensing the sudden change, the circling sharks began to drift away, but not without making one last pass near the boat. One of the sharks brushed against the hull, the impact sending a shiver through the deck as if warning them to leave. With the sharks dispersing and the fog still thick around them, Ed guided the boat slowly out of the area, his eyes never leaving the water. The crew was exhausted, their nerves shot from the encounter, but they were safe. They had escaped the threat, but their catch was gone, and the damage to their equipment would take weeks to repair. The early morning sun cast long shadows over the Australian outback, a land of stark beauty and hidden dangers. Mark, a seasoned wildlife photographer, had ventured into this remote wilderness with a singular goal: to capture images of the elusive saltwater crocodile. Known for their cunning and power, these ancient reptiles had long fascinated him. His journey took him to the dense mangroves along the northern coast, where the saltwater crocodiles reigned supreme. Mark had spent weeks preparing for this expedition. He studied maps, consulted with local guides, and meticulously checked his equipment. His camera, lenses, and waterproof gear were all in perfect condition. He knew the risks involved. The saltwater crocodile was a formidable predator, capable of swift and deadly attacks. Yet the allure of capturing their raw power on film was irresistible. He set out at dawn, the air heavy with humidity and the promise of another scorching day. The mangroves were a labyrinth of tangled roots and murky waters, a perfect crocodile habitat. Mark moved cautiously, his senses alert to every sound and movement. The ground beneath his feet was soft and treacherous, but he was used to navigating rugged terrain. Hours passed as he trekked more profoundly into the mangroves, pausing occasionally to capture the vibrant flora and fauna around him. He photographed colorful birds, stealthy reptiles, and the intricate patterns of the mangrove roots. but the saltwater crocodile remained elusive. Determined not to leave empty-handed, Mark pressed on. As he ventured further, the mangroves became denser, the air thicker with the scent of salty water. He knew he was entering prime crocodile territory. His heart raced with a mix of anticipation and caution. Suddenly he stumbled upon a hidden nest, a cluster of large leathery eggs partially buried in the mud. His pulse quickened. This was a rare find, but he was acutely aware of its danger. He carefully positioned himself to take a few shots of the nest, mindful of his surroundings. The camera clicked softly, capturing the scene. But then a sound behind him made his blood run cold. A low, guttural growl, unmistakable and terrifying. He turned slowly, his worst fear realized. The mother crocodile was emerging from the water, an enormous creature with scales glistening in the dappled sunlight. Her eyes were fixed on him, filled with a primal rage. Mark knew he had inadvertently provoked her by disturbing the nest. Without hesitation, she lunged at him with astonishing speed. Mark barely had time to react. He bolted, his heart pounding, adrenaline surging through his veins. The chase was on. The dense mangroves offered little room for maneuvering. Mark's knowledge of the terrain became his greatest asset. He darted through the twisted roots and thick foliage, using every ounce of his agility to evade the pursuing predator. The crocodile crashed through the underbrush behind him, her powerful tail and massive jaws cutting a path of destruction. Mark's mind raced as he ran. He needed to find a way to lose the crocodile and put enough distance between them to find safety. He remembered a narrow creek nearby, its banks steep and lined with thick vegetation. If he could reach it, he could use the terrain to his advantage. Reaching the creek, Mark plunged into the water, its coolness a shock to his system. He swam quickly, knowing the crocodile was just behind him. The thick vegetation along the creek's banks offered a potential barrier. He used his hands to pull himself along, the water hampering his movements and providing a measure of cover. The crocodile entered the creek with a splash, her massive form slicing through the water quickly. Mark felt a surge of panic but forced himself to stay focused. He swam to the opposite bank, scrambling up the steep incline, mud and roots offering tenuous holds. He glanced back, the crocodile closing in, her jaws snapping inches from his legs. The chase continued with the crocodile's growls, constantly reminding them of the danger. Mark's muscles burned with exhaustion, but he couldn't afford to slow down. He knew the crocodile would tire eventually, her rage giving way to the physical limits of her body. He needed to reach that point before his strength failed him. He spotted a large fallen tree ahead, its trunk forming a natural bridge over a deeper section of the creek. He headed towards it, hoping it would provide a temporary escape route. He climbed onto the trunk, moving quickly across its length. The crocodile reached the tree's base, her eyes never leaving him. She hesitated, the obstacle momentarily stalling her pursuit. Mark used the precious seconds to gain distance. He reached the other side and continued running, the dense vegetation offering a semblance of cover. Mark's mind worked quickly, assessing his options. He spotted a narrow channel leading away from the cover, its entrance partially hidden by thick foliage. It was a gamble, but he had no choice. He darted towards the channel, hoping the crocodile would struggle to follow. The narrow path was treacherous, uneven ground, but offered a potential escape. He squeezed through the foliage, the channel opening up slightly ahead. The crocodile lunged again, but the narrowness of the path hindered her. Mark kept moving, every instinct telling him to flee. The sounds of the crocodile grew fainter, her pursuit slowing. Mark didn't stop until he was sure he had put enough distance between them. He stumbled upon a rocky outcrop, a rare feature in the mangroves. He climbed onto it, using the elevation to survey his surroundings. The crocodile was nowhere in sight. Mark collapsed onto the rocks, his body trembling with exhaustion. He had survived. He lay there momentarily, catching his breath, the enormity of what had happened sinking in. The encounter had been a stark reminder of nature's raw power, the thin line between predator and prey. Mark's thoughts turned to his camera, still strapped to his chest. Miraculously, it had survived the chase. He reviewed the images he had captured, the photos of the nest, and the initial moments of the crocodile's attack. They were raw and powerful, a testament to the intensity of the encounter. After resting for a while, Mark knew he needed to find his way back. He checked his compass and oriented himself. The journey back through the mangroves was slow and cautious. Every sound made him wary, every shadow a potential threat. He retraced his steps, the memory of the chase fresh in his mind. Hours later, he emerged from the mangroves, the sun hanging low in the sky. His boat was where he had left it, a welcome sight. He climbed aboard, stowing his gear and taking a moment to reflect. The outback had tested him and pushed him to his limits. He had faced one of nature's most formidable predators and lived to tell the tale. The sun rose over the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, casting a golden glow across the waves. A marine research vessel bobbed gently on the water, anchored off the coast of Australia. On board, a team of marine biologists prepared for another day of studying the vibrant coral reefs below. Among them was Rachel, an experienced diver and researcher with a deep love for the ocean and its myriad inhabitants. The team had been in the area for several weeks, documenting the health of the coral reefs and the diverse marine life that called it home. Their mission was crucial, as coral reefs worldwide faced increasing threats from climate change, pollution, and overfishing. The data they collected would contribute to conservation efforts to preserve these underwater ecosystems. The divers suited up, checked their equipment, and reviewed their plans for the day. Rachel was assigned to document a particularly vibrant section of the reef, known for its rich biodiversity. She descended into the clear blue water with her camera and underwater notebook, followed by her teammates. The underwater world was a kaleidoscope of colors and movement. Schools of fish darted between the coral formations, and sea turtles glided gracefully through the water. Rachel marveled at the beauty around her, capturing images and taking notes on the various species she encountered. Her teammates fanned out, each focused on their specific tasks. As she swam deeper, Rachel's attention was drawn to a crevice in the reef. She noticed a movement that seemed out of place. She saw a rare and deadly sea snake, its slender body coiled among the coral. Rachel knew she had to be cautious, but her scientific curiosity urged her to document this unexpected encounter. She positioned her camera to take a few shots, maintaining a respectful distance. The snake, sensing her presence, began to uncoil. Rachel's pulse quickened. She knew that even the slightest provocation could lead to an attack. She decided it was best to retreat slowly and give the snake space. But as she turned to swim away, she felt a sharp pain in her leg. The snake had struck, its fangs delivering a dose of venom into her calf. Panic surged through her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She signaled to her team, who quickly recognized the gravity of the situation. Her leg began to feel numb, and she knew the paralysis would spread quickly. Time was of the essence. The team sprang into action, forming a protective circle around Rachel as they began their ascent to the surface. The journey to the surface was fraught with peril. The reef was a complex labyrinth of coral formations, and the sea snake's presence added an element of danger. Rachel's breathing became labored as the venom took hold and her vision blurred. Her teammates supported her, guiding her through the maze of coral with determined efficiency. As they ascended, the team remained vigilant for other sea snakes. The disturbance in the water could attract more of them, and they couldn't afford another bite. Their progress was steady but slow, the weight of urgency pressing on them. Rachel's condition deteriorated with each passing minute, her movements growing weaker. Breaking the surface, the team carefully lifted Rachel onto the deck of the research vessel. The crew had already prepared the anti-venom and medical supplies, anticipating their urgent need. Rachel was laid on a stretcher, and the ship's medic quickly administered the anti-venom, praying it hadn't arrived too late. The venom's effects were swift and severe, and Rachel's body convulsed as the anti-venom began to work. The team watched anxiously, hoping for signs of improvement. They knew the next few minutes were critical. Rachel's breathing was shallow, and her pulse was weak. Still, the anti-venom started to take effect, slowly counteracting the toxins coursing through her system. With the immediate danger addressed, the team focused on monitoring Rachel's condition. They knew that recovery would take time, and that she needed to be evacuated to a medical facility for further treatment. The captain radioed for emergency assistance, and arrangements were made for a helicopter to airlift Rachel to the nearest hospital. The sound of the helicopter's rotors grew louder as it approached the vessel, and she was transported into the plane. The medic continued to monitor her vital signs, ensuring she remained stable during the flight. The team returned to their research with Rachel on her way to the hospital. The incident had shaken them, but they knew their work was far from over. Their data was vital to understanding and protecting the fragile coral reefs. They resumed their tasks with renewed focus, aware that their efforts contributed to a more significant cause. The following days were tense as they awaited news of Rachel's condition. Updates from the hospital indicated that she was stable and responding well to treatment. The venom had caused significant damage, but the prompt administration of the antivenom had saved her life. She faced a long recovery, but it was a positive one. On July 15, 2024, the coastal community of Clearwater Beach was struck by a series of shocking shark attacks. The attacks led to widespread panic among residents and visitors, forcing local authorities to act immediately. In response to the alarming situation, a specialized rescue team was assembled to investigate the incidents and ensure the safety of everyone in the water. The Ocean Guardians rescue team consisted of highly skilled professionals with expertise in marine biology, underwater rescue, and shark behavior. Captain Laura James, a seasoned marine biologist in her early 40s, led the team. Laura was respected for her deep knowledge of sharks and extensive rescue operations experience. Mark, a veteran diver, was known for his quick thinking and calm nature. He excelled in underwater rescues and connected with marine life. Sarah, a passionate shark researcher in her late 20s, focused on great white behavior and offered invaluable insights. Eric, a veteran lifeguard familiar with local waters, brought practical rescue skills and risk assessment to the team. As the Ocean Guardians arrived at Clearwater Beach, they were met with concerned faces and a palpable sense of fear. The recent attacks had closed the beach, and many locals were worried about their safety. The team quickly gathered information from witnesses and analyzed reports about the incidents. It became evident that something unusual was happening in the waters. After equipping themselves with the necessary gear, the team set out to dive into the ocean. They planned to rescue any stranded swimmers and uncover the cause behind the aggressive shark behavior. As they entered the water, the team's determination was palpable. They knew they had to act swiftly to prevent further attacks and protect the community. Once submerged, the divers began their search. The ocean was dark and vast, and they relied on their training and instincts to navigate. As they swam deeper, they noticed distress among the local marine life. Fish scattered in all directions, and the water felt charged with tension. The team communicated through hand signals, aware of the potential danger lurking nearby. Suddenly, the divers spotted a large shadow moving through the water. It was a great white shark, larger than they had anticipated. The shark circled, displaying a sense of dominance that sent chills down their spines. The team quickly recognized that this was no ordinary predator. It seemed to be orchestrating the attacks, actively hunting for swimmers. The atmosphere grew tense as the shark approached. Laura signaled the team to remain calm and focused. They had to observe the shark's behavior closely and look for patterns. As they swam in a tight formation, the shark moved closer, testing their presence. The team felt the weight of their mission. They needed to find a way to communicate or deter this intelligent predator before more lives were lost. As they continued their observations, the shark moved, lunging towards them in an aggressive display. The team quickly reacted, using their training to maneuver away from the attack. Panic surged, but they held their composure, understanding that their response could mean the difference between life and death. The Ocean Guardians knew they were facing a formidable challenge. With the shark acting as the orchestrator of chaos in the waters, they had to devise a plan to ensure the safety of the community and themselves. The threat was real, and the stakes were high. The battle for survival had just begun, and the team needed to rely on each other as they navigated the treacherous waters in the looming presence of the great white shark. As the Ocean Guardians faced the great white shark, the tension in the water was thick with fear and uncertainty. The shark swam in circles around them, its massive body gliding through the ocean with power and grace. The team had to think quickly to stay safe. They knew that any wrong move could provoke the shark further. Captain Laura James led the team with calm determination. She reminded her divers to keep their movements smooth and controlled. They needed to avoid splashing or sudden movements that could attract the shark's attention. Instead, they focused on gathering data and understanding the predator's behavior. Mark and Sarah took the opportunity to observe the shark closely. They noted its patterns and movements, hoping to find clues about why it was behaving so aggressively. While the team stayed vigilant, they also needed to plan their next steps. They could not remain in the water indefinitely, especially with the risk of further attacks. Eric suggested that they create a diversion to distract the shark while they returned to the submarine's safety. The team agreed that this was necessary. Using equipment from their dive gear, the team began to work on their plan. They prepared a small underwater device designed to emit sound waves. This device could confuse the shark and draw its attention away from the divers. Sarah positioned the device to create vibrations in the water while the others swam in a formation that allowed them to maintain a clear line of sight. As they activated the device, the sound waves pulsed through the ocean. The great white shark paused, momentarily distracted by the noise. The team seized this opportunity to swim toward the safety of the submarine. As they approached the submarine, the shark turned and followed them. Its interest peaked again. The team quickly climbed aboard, scrambling to get inside and secure the hatch. Inside the submarine, the team assessed their situation. They were shaken but grateful to have escaped the immediate threat. They gathered around the control panel, determined to analyze what they had witnessed. Sarah reviewed the data collected during the dive, seeking answers to the shark's unusual behavior. Tension remained high as they discussed the next steps. They realized that understanding the great white's behavior was crucial to ensuring the safety of the coastal community. The team decided to share their findings with marine biologists and authorities on the surface, hoping to create a plan to prevent future attacks. As they prepared to surface, Laura reflected on the day's events. The encounters with the shark had opened their eyes to the complexities of marine life and the need for more research. Once they surfaced, the team could have spent more time relaying their findings to the local authorities. They described the great white shark's behavior and the need for immediate action to protect both swimmers and the shark itself. They understood these creatures were vital to the ecosystem, and addressing the situation required a thoughtful approach. After their experience, the Ocean Guardians became advocates for shark conservation and education. They organized community outreach programs to raise awareness about sharks and the importance of respecting marine life. Their mission evolved from a rescue team to a voice for the ocean, emphasizing unity and understanding between humans and wildlife. On July 8, 2024, the luxury yacht, the Ocean Jewel, departed from Miami, carrying affluent passengers eager for a lavish getaway. The yacht boasted gourmet dining, a pool, and attentive staff. Among the guests were Richard and Emily Hawthorne, a successful real estate couple in their 50s, along with their daughter Sarah, a recent college graduate. Known for enjoying luxury vacations, they had high expectations for the trip. Also aboard was Marcus Wright, a charismatic tech entrepreneur, and his business partner, Lisa Chen, a sharp investor. They were celebrating a lucrative deal they had just finalized. Another couple aboard was Tom and Linda Carter, a retired pair passionate about world travel. Seasoned cruisers, calm demeanor, and stories made them well liked by the group. As the yacht sailed further, the weather changed unexpectedly. Dark clouds gathered and winds intensified faster than the crew anticipated. A peaceful day at sea quickly turned chaotic. Waves crashed against the yacht and the wind howled fiercely. Passengers scrambled for life jackets as the boat swayed violently. In moments, the storm worsened, capsizing the yacht and plunging everyone into the dark, churning sea. Panic ensued as they fought to stay afloat. Amid the chaos, Richard, Emily, and Sarah found each other clinging to a raft that had broken free from the yacht. Tom and Linda also managed to hold on to a makeshift raft, but were separated from Marcus and Lisa, who struggled in the stormy waters. The passengers' shock shifted to survival as the storm raged on. They soon realized they were in shark-infested waters, the scent of fuel and commotion drawing the sharks closer. The constant threat of attack heightened their desperation. When the storm subsided, reality sank in. They were stranded, isolated, and surrounded by danger. With limited supplies and hope fading, tension grew as sharks circled beneath, their fins breaking the surface, a stark reminder of their difficult situation. Richard tried to maintain order, urging everyone to stay together and conserve energy, but the stress began to take its toll. Disagreements arose as survival instincts kicked in and tempers flared. The group faced both physical challenges and internal conflicts, As night fell, darkness brought an eerie quiet. The sound of waves against the rafts was constant, and below them sharks silently circled, their presence felt but unseen. The passengers knew they had to stay vigilant. One wrong move could be fatal. Nature's brutal reality was clear. Their luxurious lives felt distant as they faced the ocean's power and lurking predators. The struggle for survival had begun, and they had to work together to make it through the night. As darkness enveloped the ocean, the group aboard the makeshift rafts faced a dire situation. The calm after the storm brought little relief, leaving them with fear and uncertainty. Richard, Emily, and Sarah huddled together for warmth and strength, watching the shark's fins slicing through the surface, a constant reminder of the lurking danger. Tension hung in the air, and the survivors knew that even a small splash could draw the shark's attention. Richard urged them to form a plan, suggesting they gather floating debris to stabilize their rafts and stay together. Sarah spotted some wood nearby, and with her father's encouragement, they began collecting it. Meanwhile, Tom and Linda worked to secure their raft. Seeing Marcus and Lisa struggling a short distance away, Tom waved them over. Despite the risk, Marcus and Lisa carefully paddled toward Tom and Linda's raft, avoiding splashes to minimize the chance of attracting sharks. Once together, the group discussed their situation, recognizing the need to stay calm and focused and conserve energy and supplies. Linda suggested taking shifts to watch for sharks while others rested, ensuring they stayed alert without exhausting themselves. Everyone agreed, knowing that teamwork was essential for survival. As the night wore on, the sharks continued circling, their dark shapes a constant reminder of the danger. The survivors felt the weight of their predicament, worrying about their loved ones and the fate of those still on the yacht. The vast isolation of the ocean felt overwhelming. At dawn, the first light brought a brief hope as the sunrise cast a warm glow on the water. But that hope quickly faded. As the sun rose, the sharks grew more active, their behavior becoming increasingly aggressive. Sarah suddenly spotted a shark speeding toward their raft, sparking panic in the group. The massive shark lunged, its jaws wide. Richard instinctively pushed Sarah back, putting himself in danger. Quick thinking, Marcus grabbed a piece of wood and splashed it in the water, trying to distract the shark. The splash startled the shark, causing it to veer off but quickly circled back. The group knew they had to stay united to fend off the threat. They began banging on the rafts and splashing water, hoping the noise would deter the sharks. The next few hours dragged on as the survivors made noise while others rested. Exhaustion set in and their supplies dwindled. Richard and Marcus discussed signaling for help, recognizing that staying in one place was dangerous, but knowing they needed to find a way to safety. As midday approached, the group spotted a distant boat. Hope surged as they realized rescue might be near. They waved their arms and shouted, careful not to splash and attract the shark's attention. The fishing boat slowed as its crew noticed the survivors. However, the sharks grew more aggressive as the vessel approached, drawn by the movement and noise. Just as the boat reached them, chaos ensued. One shark lunged at Sarah, who was near the raft's edge. Richard swiftly pulled her back, but the sudden motion caused a wave that threw the group off balance. The shark's powerful body slammed into the raft, sending everyone scrambling to hold on. The fishing crew sprang into action, tossing a rope to the survivors, who grabbed it and fought against the relentless sharks. With adrenaline pumping, they pulled themselves toward the safety of the boat. Finally, the survivors were pulled aboard the fishing vessel and collapsed on the deck, shaken but relieved. The crew tended to their injuries while the group reflected on their ordeal. The experience had deeply impacted them, starkly reminding them of nature's raw power and the importance of safety at sea. Together, they carried the memory of their struggle and the lessons learned into their future. On September 5, 2024, in a small coastal town in Florida, aging fisherman Hank Lawson lived with bittersweet memories of the sea. Once a vibrant man who shared his love of fishing with his children, Hank cherished every moment spent with his family. Tragedy struck one afternoon when Hank took his wife, Karen, and their two children, Jake and Lily, out for a day of fishing. They enjoyed the sun, unaware of the danger lurking beneath the surface. As they anchored near a small island, a group of sharks approached, drawn by the commotion. Suddenly, a great white shark lunged at the boat. Chaos erupted and the shark's swift attack threw Hank's family into the water. His desperate attempts to save them were in vain, and he watched in horror as his loved ones were lost. The event left Hank devastated, haunted by guilt and sorrow. Once a source of joy, the ocean became a reminder of his loss. Consumed by grief, Hank blamed himself for not protecting his family. His life shifted as he became obsessed with revenge, determined to track down the sharks, especially the great whites that had taken everything from him. Hank poured his energy into hunting sharks for years, honing his skills. His anger fueled his relentless quest, but it also isolated him. He pushed away anyone who tried to reach out, his obsession cutting him off from the world. One day, Hank met Maya, a young marine conservationist passionate about protecting marine life. Maya had heard about Hank's tragic past, and though she understood his pain, she saw the danger in his obsession. She believed humans should coexist with sharks, but Hank saw them as monsters and dismissed her views. Despite their differences, they were forced to collaborate when shark attacks increased in the area. An especially intelligent great white shark was spotted near the coast, and both knew they needed to track it down. Hank sought confrontation while Maya aimed to understand and protect the shark's behavior. As they prepared for the mission, tension ran high. Hank's thirst for revenge clashed with Maya's conservation-driven beliefs, creating an uneasy partnership. Their journey would test their beliefs, survival skills, and resilience as they ventured deeper into shark territory. The open waters were filled with danger. Hank, haunted by memories of his family, was ready to face them, while Maya sought to protect the sharks and teach Hank about their vital role in the ecosystem. Together, they embarked on a journey of peril and uncertainty, confronting natural threats and their fears. As they set sail, Hank felt the weight of his past pressing down on him. The vast ocean held the shadows of lurking sharks, and their mission would force them to confront the complex relationship between humans and predators. Hank gripped the vessel's wheel with the sun shining on the water, his heart racing with anticipation and fear. He was determined to find the great white shark that had haunted him for years. Maya sat beside him, scanning the horizon, hoping to spot signs of the predator. They had prepared thoroughly. Hank brought his fishing gear and harpoons, while Maya had underwater cameras and research tools. Though their goals differed, Hank seeking revenge and Maya seeking understanding, they knew the risks involved. As they ventured further from shore, the water grew deeper and darker. A chill ran down Hank's spine as memories of his family threatened to resurface, but he shook them off, focusing on the mission. Suddenly, a shadow moved beneath the surface, disrupting the calm. Hank's heart raced as he pointed to the spot. Maya quickly grabbed her camera. The shadow grew larger, revealing the unmistakable shape of a great white shark. The shark surfaced, its massive fin cutting through the water. Hank's determination grew, but so did the tension between him and Maya. She wanted to observe the shark while Hank saw it as his enemy. As they edged closer, the shark circled their boat, its eyes locked on them. The moment was both exhilarating and terrifying. Suddenly, the shark lunged at the boat, sending a massive splash into the air. Hank maneuvered the vessel to avoid a direct hit. The ship shook violently and Maya gripped the railing, her heart pounding. Fear surged through Hank. This wasn't just a predator, but a powerful, intelligent creature defending its territory. As the great white circled again, Hank realized the shark was challenging him. His thirst for revenge conflicted with a growing respect for its strength. He realized they were intruding on the shark's domain. Maya sought knowledge and focused on documenting its movements while Hank was torn. His desire for vengeance clashed with a newfound respect for the creature's power. As night fell, the ocean became darker, and Hank felt the weight of his mission. He knew he had to face the great white, but understood that his actions carried deep responsibility. The next morning they regrouped. Hank realized he had to confront the shark without putting either of them in danger. This wasn't just a hunt anymore, but a path to redemption. Hank and Maya plunged into the ocean's depths, confronting the great white shark. It wasn't merely a matter of survival. It was about understanding the delicate balance of life beneath the waves. The experience transformed them both. For Hank, it became a journey of redemption. For Maya, a powerful lesson in coexistence. Although the ocean still held many mysteries, they faced their greatest challenge together, and emerged stronger. Mary had always been self-conscious about her weight. As a child, she had been the target of unkind remarks and stares, and those experiences had left her hesitant to engage in activities that drew attention to her body. Vacations, especially those involving swimsuits and beaches, were a particular source of anxiety. Yet here she was in South Africa, having decided it was time to push past her fears. Her family had planned this vacation for months, hoping it would be a time for relaxation and adventure. They had chosen a beautiful coastal town known for its stunning beaches and clear waters. It was a perfect opportunity for Mary to try something she had always been curious about, but too afraid to attempt: snorkeling. On a bright morning, the sky was clear and the water was inviting. Mary decided it was time. She felt excitement and trepidation as she put on her snorkeling gear. Her family cheered her on from the beach, encouraging her. The coolness against her skin was a welcome sensation as she waded into the water. She adjusted her mask and took a deep breath before plunging her face into the water. The underwater world was mesmerizing. Schools of colorful fish darted around her, and the coral reefs were alive with activity. Mary was amazed by its beauty and tranquility. She swam farther out, captivated by the vibrant marine life. She was so absorbed in the experience that she didn't realize how far she had ventured from the shore. It wasn't until she surfaced to adjust her mask that she noticed how distant the beach had become. Panic started to build, but she forced herself to stay calm. She could swim back, she told herself. She just needed to take her time and not exhaust herself. She took a few deep breaths and put her face back into the water, beginning the journey back to the shore. As she swam, she became aware of a change in the water's rhythm. The fish that had been so abundant were now scarce, and an eerie stillness settled around her. She surfaced again, looking around. The beach was still far off, but that wasn't what concerned her the most. It was the shadow she saw moving beneath her. Mary's heart pounded in her chest as she realized what was happening. A great white shark, drawn by her movements, was circling her. Her mind raced, remembering everything she had ever heard about shark encounters. The first rule was not to panic, but that was easier said than done. She knew sudden movements could attract the shark's attention even more. She forced herself to stay still, floating calmly on the surface. Now she could see the shark more clearly, its massive body gliding effortlessly through the water. It was both beautiful and terrifying. She needed to think and devise a plan to fend off the predator. She scanned the water around her for anything she could use as a weapon, but there was nothing. The shark passed beneath her, close enough that she could see the scars on its skin and the cold, predatory gaze in its eyes. She knew she had to act. She remembered reading that sometimes making yourself appear larger and more threatening could deter a shark. She spread her arms and legs wide, making herself as big as possible in the water. For a moment, it worked. The shark veered off, circling at a distance, but it was far from gone. Mary knew she couldn't maintain this position forever. Her muscles were already starting to ache, and the shore seemed impossibly far away. She needed to move, but she needed to do it without drawing the shark back to her. Slowly, she began to swim again, keeping her movements as smooth and steady as possible. She kept an eye on the shark, watching its every move. It was still circling, still interested. Her mind raced with strategies. She remembered that strong, unexpected sensations often deterred sharks. She could scare it off if she could deliver a solid blow to its sensitive snout or gills. She had nothing to use as a weapon, but she did have her fins. They were sturdy and designed to help her swim efficiently. She could use them to kick if the shark got too close. It wasn't much, but it was something. She swam with purpose now, her eyes constantly scanning for any sign of the shark coming closer. Mary's legs were burning from swimming and holding herself, ready to strike. She was exhausted, but she couldn't stop. The beach was getting closer, but she wasn't safe yet. The shark made another pass, closer still. Mary could feel the water churn as it moved past her. She knew this was it. She had to make her stand. As the shark turned for another approach, she readied herself. It came at her and she kicked out with all her strength, aiming for its snout. The impact was jarring, but it worked. The shark recoiled, startled by the unexpected resistance. Mary didn't wait to see if it would come back. She swam as fast as she could towards the shore, her limbs screaming in protest. She could now hear her family's and other beachgoers' shouts urging her on. The water grew shallower, and she could feel the sand beneath her feet. She stumbled and fell, but got up again, pushing herself forward. The shark had stopped following her, deterred by the shallows and the commotion. Mary made it to the shore, collapsing in the sand, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. She lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, before she realized her family surrounded her. They helped her up, their faces a mix of concern and admiration. Mary couldn't believe what had just happened. She had faced her greatest fear and survived. In the days that followed, Mary reflected on her experience. She had always seen herself as weak and incapable. Still, she had discovered a strength within herself she never knew existed. She had faced a deadly predator and used her wits and determination to survive. A profound realization changed how she saw herself and her capabilities. The vacation continued, and Mary became more willing to try new things. She went on hikes, explored the coastal towns, and even went snorkeling again, this time in safer, guided environments. The fear was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She had faced the worst and come out stronger. On a crisp morning in August 2002, a group of friends set out for a kayaking adventure in the pristine waters of British Columbia. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a golden glow over the calm sea. The air was filled with the scent of salt and pine, and the gentle sound of waves lapping against the rocky shoreline created a serene backdrop for the day's journey. The group consisted of 4 friends: Liam Harris, a 34-year-old outdoor enthusiast who had organized the trip; Emma Lewis, a 30-year-old biologist with a passion for marine life; Ben Cooper, a 28-year-old photographer eager to capture the beauty of the wilderness; and Rachel Adams, a 32-year-old teacher looking to unwind from the stresses of the school year. They launched their kayaks from Telegraph Cove, a secluded spot locals favor for its tranquility and abundant wildlife. British Columbia was famous for its rich marine ecosystem, home to seals, sea lions, and various fish species. But the most awe-inspiring residents were the orcas, or killer whales, that roamed these waters. Known for their intelligence and complex social structures, orcas were feared and admired by those who encountered them. As the group paddled into the open water, they marveled at the beauty around them. The sea was a deep blue, mirroring the clear sky above. Emma pointed out a family of seals basking on a nearby rock, while Ben snapped photos of the picturesque scene. The friends chatted and laughed, their spirits high as they embraced the adventure ahead. The date was August 18th, and the day seemed perfect for exploration. The kayakers paddled further from the shore, enjoying the freedom of the open water. With her keen eye for wildlife, Emma spotted the first sign of orcas in the distance, a series of dark dorsal fins breaking the surface. She alerted the group and they all stopped to watch, excited by the prospect of a close encounter with these magnificent creatures. The pod of orcas approached slowly, their sleek black and white bodies moving gracefully through the water. The kayakers felt awe and excitement, knowing they were witnessing something extraordinary. Orcas, known as killer whales, were the ocean's top predators. Despite their name, they rarely posed a threat to humans. However, their size and power commanded respect. Liam, Emma, Ben, and Rachel remained still, hoping to look closer without disturbing the animals. The orcas seemed curious, swimming closer to the kayaks. One particularly young orca caught Emma's attention. It was smaller than the others, likely a juvenile, and appeared more playful. It swam around the group, occasionally breaching the surface and splashing water with its tail. The kayakers were mesmerized by the display and felt privileged to be in the presence of such incredible creatures. Little did they know, the encounter was about to turn dark. The young orca's playful behavior soon became more aggressive. It began nudging Liam's kayak, initially with gentle pushes that grew stronger each pass. Liam tried to keep his kayak steady, but the orca's forceful nudges made it difficult. The group exchanged worried glances, realizing that the situation was becoming dangerous. Emma, with her knowledge of marine life, knew that orcas could be unpredictable, especially young ones who might not yet have complete control of their strength. The group tried to remain calm, hoping the orca would lose interest and swim away. But the juvenile seemed fixated on Liam's kayak, continuing to push and bump it increasingly. The tension in the air was palpable as the friends braced themselves for what might come next. The young orca's behavior escalated quickly. Its playful nudges turned into aggressive shoves, dangerously rocking Liam's kayak. The orca's powerful movements disturbed the water's calm surface, sending waves rippling outward. Liam gripped the sides of his kayak, trying to maintain his balance. But the orca's forceful pushes made it nearly impossible. Emma, Ben, and Rachel watched in growing fear, unsure how to help. They knew that getting too close could also put them in danger. The juvenile orca, seemingly undeterred, rammed Liam's kayak with a sudden burst of energy, tipping it over. Liam was thrown into the cold water, his kayak flipping upside down. Panic surged through the group as they saw Liam struggling in the water. The orca circled, its presence a looming threat. Liam tried to swim towards his overturned kayak, but the orca blocked his path, nudging him with its nose. Each touch was a reminder of the orca's immense power, and Liam's heart pounded with fear. Emma, thinking quickly, signaled to Ben and Rachel to stay back while she paddled towards Liam. She knew they had to act fast to get him out of the water before the orca became more aggressive. The young orca continued to nudge Liam, causing him to gasp for air each time he was pushed underwater. Emma reached Liam and grabbed his arm, pulling him towards her kayak. Sensing the movement, the orca swam closer, its dorsal fin cutting through the water like a knife. Emma's heart raced as she struggled to keep both of them afloat. Ben and Rachel watched helplessly, their kayaks bobbing in the choppy water. Emma desperately tried to drag Liam to her kayak. She held on to him tightly, hoping the orca would back off. But the juvenile orca seemed more determined than ever. It swam around them, creating a whirlpool effect that made it hard for Emma to paddle. The water was now a chaotic mix of waves and foam, each movement of the orca sending ripples of fear through the group. Liam clung to the side of Emma's kayak, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The cold water sapped his strength, and he struggled to stay conscious. Emma knew they couldn't wait any longer. She shouted at Ben and Rachel to paddle towards the shore and get help. They nodded and started swimming with all their might, quick and frantic strokes. Emma kept a firm grip on Liam, her eyes never leaving the orca. The young whale circled them one last time before it seemed to lose interest, perhaps sensing the arrival of more humans. It swam off, leaving the water calm once more. Emma felt relief, but she knew they weren't safe yet. Ben and Rachel reached the shore and alerted a nearby boat. A rescue team arrived within minutes, pulling Liam and Emma to safety. Liam was rushed to the hospital, where he was treated for hypothermia and minor injuries. The group's ordeal had lasted only a few hours, but it felt like an eternity. The kayakers' harrowing experience at Telegraph Cove became a story of survival and the unpredictable nature of wildlife. The young orca's behavior was a stark reminder of the power and unpredictability of the ocean's inhabitants. Liam, Emma, Ben, and Rachel would carry the memory of that day with them forever, their bond strengthened by the shared experience of facing danger together. On August 26, 2024, a U.S. Coast Guard team was conducting a routine patrol 15 miles offshore off the coast of California. It was supposed to be an ordinary training exercise they had done many times before. Lieutenant Jason McCall was in charge, a seasoned officer leading a team of 5, including Petty Officer Sam Henderson, Seaman First Class Mike Daniels, and 2 recruits, Sarah Jenkins and Tom Bradley. Their mission was straightforward: practice rescue drills, prepare for emergencies, and ensure the crew's readiness for real-life situations. The day started uneventfully, with the crew reviewing procedures, checking equipment, and running drills. They were operating near an area known for its rich marine life. The waters off the coast of California are home to various aquatic animals, including seals, dolphins, and great white sharks. The area near the Farallon Islands, about 30 miles from their location, was notorious for frequent shark activity, especially during migration seasons. Great whites in this region can grow over 20 feet long and are apex predators known for their powerful attacks and stealthy hunting tactics. Despite knowing these facts, the crew didn't expect any danger. They focused on their exercise and were confident in the safety of the routine. As the drills continued, everything seemed normal, until Petty Officer Sam Henderson noticed something strange. A soft jolt ran through the boat as they bumped into something. He scanned the waters around them, seeing nothing at first. However, a large shadow soon emerged beneath the surface, slowly circling the boat. He alerted Jason, and both recognized the dark outline. It was a great white shark. At first, it seemed like a passing predator, curious but non-threatening. Still, they grew uneasy. The shark didn't swim away. Instead, it started circling the boat more aggressively, its movements tightening as it swam closer. Jason ordered the crew to stay alert, but no one anticipated what came next. The shark suddenly rammed the side of the boat, sending a shockwave through the hull. The crew, unprepared for the impact, stumbled as the boat shook violently. Sam rushed to check for damage while the recruits scrambled to secure themselves. The vessel had sustained a blow, but the extent of the damage wasn't immediately clear. Before they could react, the shark struck again, harder this time. The force of the second impact nearly knocked everyone off their feet. Standing too close to the edge, Mike Daniels lost his balance and was thrown overboard. His fall was sudden and chaotic, splashing into the water as the rest of the crew screamed his name. He surfaced quickly, flailing in the water, trying to grab hold of anything to stay afloat. The shark was already circling, drawn to the movement in the water. The crew moved quickly to throw Mike a life ring, but the shark was closing in faster than anyone expected. Blood from the impact was already spreading in the water, and the predator was relentless. The team had only seconds to pull Mike out before the situation escalated. Jason knew they were in trouble. The shark was not behaving like typical predators in these waters. It seemed more aggressive, deliberately targeting the boat. Sam tried to keep the crew calm, but the panic was growing. With Mike in the water, the danger had become very real. The crew braced for the worst as the shark circled closer, its dorsal fin cutting through the surface like a blade. Mike struggled to stay above the water as the shark made its first pass. The crew could see the predator circling him, its movements controlled and deliberate. The situation was deteriorating quickly. Jason ordered the team to pull Mike back on board, but the shark wasn't giving them time. It lunged at Mike, its powerful jaws snapping shut around his leg. The water turned red as the shark dragged him under, its body twisting violently beneath the surface. For a few moments, Mike disappeared from view. The crew stood frozen, horrified by the scene unfolding before them. Then, miraculously, Mike resurfaced, gasping for air. His leg was severely injured, the blood pouring from the wound into the water, but he was still alive. The shark, however, wasn't done. It was circling for another attack, drawn by the fresh blood and the thrashing movements in the water. The crew threw another life ring toward Mike, desperately trying to pull him out before the shark made its next move. Sam readied a harpoon gun, his hands shaking as he aimed for the shark. He fired, but the shot missed. The shark turned sharply, its dorsal fin visible again as it prepared to strike. Jason and Tom tied a rope and prepared to haul Mike out quickly. Just as they began to pull him in, the shark lunged again, its jaws snapping shut just inches from Mike's arm. The sheer size and power of the great white were overwhelming. The boat rocked as the predator rammed the side again, causing more damage to the hull. Water started to leak into the lower deck, but the crew had no time to deal with it. Their focus was on saving Mike before the shark could finish him off. In a desperate move, Sam fired another harpoon, this time hitting the shark in its side. The predator recoiled, thrashing in the water as the harpoon embedded itself into its thick skin. The shark twisted violently, the water churning around it as it tried to shake off the attack. This gave Jason and Tom the precious seconds to pull Mike out of the water. They dragged him onto the deck, his leg mangled and bleeding heavily. The shark continued to thrash below, but it wasn't finished. It made one last attempt to ram the boat, but the damage was done. With Mike on board, Jason steered the ship toward the shore, trying to outrun the predator. The shark, injured but still relentless, followed them for a few hundred yards before finally retreating into the depths. The boat was damaged, barely holding together as they limped toward safety. Mike lay on the deck, his face pale from shock and blood loss. His leg was a mess of torn flesh and muscle, but the bleeding had slowed. Jason and Sam wrapped the wound tightly, doing their best to keep him stable as they pushed the damaged boat forward. As the coastline appeared in the distance, the crew breathed a sigh of relief. They had survived, but the memory of the attack would stay with them forever. The image of the shark's dark shadow, its sudden attack, and the sight of Mike being dragged underwater were seared into their minds. The routine patrol had turned into a nightmare, one that none of them would forget. In June 2013, Three amateur treasure hunters, Aaron Foster, Kyle Matthews, and Jake Sorensen, set out on a journey that had consumed their imaginations for years. They were diving off the coast of the Caribbean near the island of St. Kitts, searching for remnants of a Spanish galleon that had sunk centuries ago. Local legends spoke of gold coins, silver bars, and precious artifacts scattered across the seafloor, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to dive into the deep. The three men, inexperienced but driven by their passion for adventure, believed they could find it. The day had begun like any other in the Caribbean, with the sun gleaming on the turquoise water. They anchored their boat near a reef that locals had hinted might hide pieces of the wreck. The excitement was palpable as they checked their gear one last time before plunging into the ocean. Aaron, a seasoned diver among the three, led the dive, with Kyle and Jake following close behind. They descended through the water, eagerly scanning the seabed for any sign of the shipwreck. After nearly an hour of exploring, they found a decaying hull half buried in the sand, its timbers worn down by centuries of water and time. The ship was ancient, and the possibility that treasure lay hidden within its remains was enough to send a thrill through the group. They swam closer, cautiously entering the wreck, their lights illuminating the dark spaces within the hull. Inside, they began searching for signs of anything valuable, combing through the debris and silt that had settled over the centuries. Jake didn't take long to spot something, an old tarnished coin wedged between two broken planks. He pulled it free, showing it to Aaron and Kyle with a grin. They were ecstatic, believing this was the first of many discoveries. But as they continued their search, something else lurked in the water above them. Hammerhead sharks, known for their distinctive heads and aggressive behavior, frequented these waters. While not typically prone to attacking divers, hammerheads were territorial creatures, and the movement inside the wreck had caught the attention of a particularly large one. At first, the shark merely observed from a distance, its wide-set eyes scanning the area. Aaron felt a sudden chill of unease as he moved to another part of the wreck. He turned to see the silhouette of a massive hammerhead circling the wreck, its body moving gracefully but with intent. Aaron signaled to the others, his heart rate picking up. The treasure hunt had become far more dangerous than any of them had anticipated. The hammerhead shark began circling closer, its posture growing more aggressive with each pass. It was no longer just curious but asserting its dominance over the area. Aaron, Kyle, and Jake quickly realized the shark wouldn't leave. They were trapped inside the wreck and their air supplies were running low. Each had less than 30 minutes of oxygen left, but the shark blocked their path to the surface. The three huddled inside the hull, trying to remain calm. The narrow, decaying beams of the ship were their only protection against the massive predator circling just beyond. Every few minutes, the hammerhead passed close enough for them to see the cold, predatory glint in its wide eyes. The shark moved with slow, calculated precision, waiting for the right moment to strike. Aaron tried to think of a plan. They couldn't stay hidden forever, and their air tanks were ticking quickly. He signaled to Kyle and Jake that they needed to move but would have to distract the shark. Aaron gestured to a piece of debris nearby, pointing out that if they could create enough movement away from the wreck, the shark might be lured away, giving them enough time to escape. Kyle nodded, understanding the plan. He grabbed a plank of wood and quickly threw it as far as he could into the water beyond the wreck. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, in a flash of movement, the hammerhead darted toward the debris, its powerful body slicing through the water with terrifying speed. It was their chance. The three divers moved, swimming as quickly and silently as possible toward the open water. Aaron led the way, watching the sharks ascending toward the surface. The hammerhead circled back sooner than they had hoped, realizing the debris was no threat. It turned sharply, refocusing its attention on the divers. The shark was closing in fast. Jake, bringing up the rear, felt a surge of panic as the hammerhead charged toward them. He kicked harder, knowing the predator was right behind him. The water churned as the shark darted closer, its massive head swaying from side to side, scanning for the perfect moment to strike. With only feet separating them from the boat, Aaron reached the ladder first, pulling himself out of the water as fast as he could. Kyle followed, but Jake wasn't as lucky. Just as he reached for the ladder, the hammerhead surged up from below, brushing against his legs with a sickening force. Jake screamed into his regulator, the impact sending a shock through his entire body. He kicked wildly, his heart pounding as he tried to scramble onto the ladder. Aaron and Kyle grabbed Jake's arms, hauling him up just as the shark made another pass, snapping its jaws at the air where Jake's foot had been. The three of them collapsed onto the deck of the boat, gasping for breath, their bodies trembling from the adrenaline. Below them, the hammerhead circled a few more times, clearly agitated that its prey had escaped, before finally drifting back into the depths. The divers lay on the boat's deck, staring at the sky, shaken but alive. Their treasure hunt had nearly cost them their lives. As they caught their breath, the reality of the encounter set in. There were far greater dangers in the ocean than the allure of hollow gold. The massive hammerhead had shown them how quickly a dive could turn deadly, and the once exciting prospect of finding treasure now felt trivial compared to what they had just survived. Sunset Beach in California was bustling with activity on a warm summer in 2000. The sun shone brightly over the clear blue waters, reflecting off the gentle waves that lapped against the sandy shore. Families and tourists scattered across the beach, setting up colorful umbrellas and laying out towels while children built sandcastles near the water's edge. Mark Eldridge, a seasoned lifeguard, scanned the horizon from his perch. At 32, Mark was known for his sharp eyes and quick reflexes, skills honed over years of training. He took pride in his work, understanding the weight of responsibility he carried daily. Sunset Beach, with its picturesque views and inviting waters, was not just a place for relaxation. It was also home to various marine life, including the majestic but dangerous great white shark. Great white sharks were common in California waters. Known for their robust build and predatory instincts, these apex predators could grow up to 20 feet long. They typically roamed the ocean's deeper parts, but occasionally ventured closer to shore. While shark attacks were rare, the potential danger was always present, making vigilance a crucial part of Mark's daily routine. On this particular day, Mark's colleague Sarah Davidson was patrolling the beach on foot. Sarah, a 28-year-old lifeguard with a calm demeanor, had been working alongside Mark for 3 years. The two shared a mutual respect and an unspoken understanding, having faced numerous emergencies together. They were part of a larger team dedicated to ensuring the safety of everyone who visited Sunset Beach. As the day progressed, Mark and Sarah kept a watchful eye on the swimmers. Among them was a young man named Jason Myers, a 25-year-old fitness enthusiast who frequented the beach for his daily swim. Jason had moved to California a year ago and quickly fell in love with the ocean. He was a strong swimmer, often venturing further out than most. The date was August 14th, 2000, and the beach was at its peak of activity in the early afternoon. The sun was high, casting a golden hue over the sand and sea. Mark adjusted his binoculars, scanning the water as he had done countless times before. Then he noticed something unusual, a dark silhouette moving beneath the surface, farther out in the ocean. Mark's heart rate quickened as he focused on the shape. It was a great white shark, unmistakably giant and heading towards the shore. He knew he had to act fast. Without hesitation, he grabbed the emergency whistle hanging around his neck and blew it, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the noise of the beachgoers. The alarm sent a wave of panic through the crowd. Parents called for their children, and swimmers began to make their way back to the shore. Mark's eyes remained fixed on the shark, now alarmingly close to where Jason was swimming. He shouted for Jason to return, waving his arms frantically, but the distance and noise made it difficult for Jason to hear. Sarah, noticing the commotion, sprinted towards the water, ready to assist. She reached the surf's edge, urging people to escape the water. Mark knew they had only moments before the situation turned dire. He grabbed a rescue board and plunged into the ocean, paddling with all his strength towards Jason. Mark saw the young man, Jason, finally turning as he became aware of the danger. The shark was only a few feet away, its dorsal fin cutting ominously through the water. Mark's training kicked in and he focused on one goal, getting Jason out of harm's way. Just as Mark reached Jason, the shark struck with terrifying speed. The massive predator lunged forward, its mighty jaws clamping down on Jason's leg. The water turned red with blood and Jason screamed in pain. Mark's heart pounded, but he didn't hesitate. He grabbed Jason by the arm and pulled with all his might, trying to free him from the shark's grip. The shark thrashed violently, determined not to let go. Mark kicked at the water, using the rescue board as a barrier between them and the shark. Jason's face was contorted in agony, but he fought to stay conscious, trusting Mark to save him. Sarah watched from the shore, ready to jump in if needed, while the rest of the beach looked on in horror. Mark freed Jason with a final, desperate yank from the shark's jaws. The shark circled back, its eyes cold and calculating. But Mark pushed Jason onto the rescue board and began paddling towards the shore with all his strength. Blood trailed behind them, a stark reminder of the close call they had just survived. As they neared the shore, Sarah waded into the water to help pull them in. Together, they lifted Jason onto the sand, where they could see the extent of his injuries. His leg was severely torn, the bite marks deep and ragged. Sarah immediately applied pressure to the wound, trying to stem the flow of blood while Mark called for medical assistance. An ambulance arrived within minutes, and the paramedics took over, stabilizing Jason and preparing him for transport to the hospital. Mark and Sarah watched as their friend and fellow beachgoers were taken away, feeling relief and exhaustion. They had done everything they could, but the memory of the attack would linger long after the physical wounds had healed. Sunset Beach returned to a semblance of normalcy in the days that followed. The community rallied around Jason, offering support and encouragement during his recovery. Mark and Sarah continued their duties, ever vigilant and aware of the dangers lurking beneath the waves. The story of the great white shark at Sunset Beach became a cautionary tale shared among locals and visitors alike. It was a testament to the bravery and quick thinking of the lifeguards, who risked their lives to save another.